right. Well, hey, welcome everybody to our first ever Southern Baptist Conversations presidential conversation. I am here with Pastor Willy Rice. How are you today, Pastor Willy?
I'm doing great, Tyler. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, absolutely. Hey, Pastor Willy, really quick, can you give us just your quick kind of your history as a Southern Baptist? You know, were you converted in a Southern Baptist church, and how long
Now,
have you been a Southern Baptist? And just kind of tell us your Southern Baptist story.
yeah, it goes way back. I was converted. I was a child at 9 when I made my profession of faith, and but I think I'm a fourth generation Baptist as far back as I can go on my
There you
mother's
go.
side through my mother's side, and really fourth generation Florida Baptist. My
Awesome.
grandmother grew up in a Plant City strawberry farm, just between Tampa and Orlando. My grandfather was a deacon. No preachers in our family, but my grandfather was a deacon in a Southern Baptist church, as was my dad and mom. So I grew up in Southern Baptist church, and I kind of grew up in the two church, First Baptist Indian Rocks, where I was a child, and then
Okay.
but I was saved on a Saturday night revival at my grandmother's church at
Oh,
a
that's
little
wonderful.
church called the East Chelsea Baptist Church in Tampa, Florida. So my Baptist roots go way back, and it's all I've ever been. But
Yeah.
grateful and love Southern Baptist.
Well, and that's wonderful. And that kind of leads to my next question. And, you know, I kind of sent you these questions beforehand, and I really just kind of want this to flow as a conversation. Um,
Absolutely.
so obviously, so me and you both, I mean, I was raised Southern Baptist, born Southern Baptist, kind of came into it, converted, very similar story. What do you believe the purpose for the Southern Baptist Convention is?
I think, I really think there's only one purpose ultimately, and that is obviously to cooperate together for
Yeah.
the expansion of the gospel, the extension of God's kingdom. Now, there are a lot of things that go under that cooperative work in terms of training leaders, in terms of educating our people, producing discipleship materials, organizing missions, and that sort of thing. But I think the reason that you have a denominational structure.
Yeah.
It's not obviously commanded in the Bible to do it this way, but the reason we do it is because, as I've explained it on the very granular level, there are things we can do together that we cannot do alone. And as I explain to my people, Baptists believe in the independence of each local church, that each church is autonomous and self-governing, but we also believe in the interdependence of the local church, that we are
That's good.
not alone, we are not the beginning and end of the kingdom, and that we should cooperate with others of like
Yeah.
faith and practice for the extension of the gospel around the world.
Okay, so that whole like faith and practice thing, like right, like that's kind of a discussion point for us.
Yes, it is.
So what does that look like? Like, what does friendly cooperation look like? Because I mean, that's in our Constitution. You know, a church of that is in friendly cooperation,
Yep.
of similar faith and practice. What does that look like? Like, kind of describe to me, kind of,
Yeah,
what's your
that
vision for
is.
that?
Well, that's a great question. And I think there's
Yeah,
some language about being closely aligned.
yeah,
And of
closely
course,
aligned. There, yeah,
that's
closely
subjective
identified. Yeah,
because what does closely aligned mean? Does it mean
yeah,
you're in the neighborhood or does it mean you're hugging? It's
yeah.
what is closely aligned? It's a subjective phrase. But there are two things, again, when you think about Southern Baptist, you think about our doctrine and our duty, if you will, or our
Mhm.
message and our mission, if you want to
Yeah,
alliterate all those things. You think about what we believe that unites us, and that's important.
mhm.
And then you think about what we're trying to do
Yeah,
that unites us. So when someone talks about being closely aligned, I think you have to begin with our doctrine and our belief statement. And we have, or our belief, and we have a belief statement, a statement of faith, as you know, which is the
yeah,
Baptist faith and message. Now, I think when, we say things like you have to be closely aligned, that what the implication of that is that we did not require every Baptist church to use that official statement of faith. We accepted it as a
mhm.
statement of faith for our cooperative apparatus.
Yeah,
But we understood that some churches, they might have the abstract of principles, or they might have the 1925 statement, or
yeah.
they might go back to 1689 or something. These are statements that are all closely aligned. They
Mhm.
aren't exactly written the same way the BFNM 2000 is, but they are closely aligned. Another way to say that would be there are no substantive theological differences. Again, that
Yeah,
demands some interpretation,
yeah,
but that is what I think closely aligned means. It doesn't mean, you got 80% of it
yeah.
or you got 90% of it. It means that your doctrinal beliefs are consistent with and not contrary to the
Yeah.
express statement of faith of Baptist people. So when you talk about what does it mean to be in friendly cooperation, I think you got to start there. I think
Yeah.
you have to say, are we closely aligned in our doctrinal statements? Obviously, we want to be closely aligned in how we cooperate together. And you
Yeah.
could say, hey, what does it mean to be in friendly cooperation? Well, it means churches are active, they're
Mhm.
giving, they're serving, they're going. But, we've tended to grant a lot of gratitude in that, understanding that there are a lot of ways in which churches do missions and do their programming.
Yeah.
And, we could narrow that gap if we wanted to. But I think typically what we have said is we've got to be on the same page doctrinally.
Yeah.
Again, there are some parameters, and within those parameters, there is some room
Mhm.
for minor differences. But there has to be a close alignment with the doctrinal parameters of the SBC.
Absolutely. And so kind of leading on to, next question. Okay, so a few years ago from the floor, we're in New Orleans.
Yep.
The Baptist Faith and Message is amended. Okay, so
Mm,
from the floor, I mean, everybody was kind of shocked when that happened.
yeah.
I was actually eating a beignet when that happened, and I almost choked on my beignet because, and I have a video of this. I'll have to send it to you. Um, and at the same time, though, there was movement, kind of a grassroots movement for the law amendment. So, the law
Yep.
amendment, a little bit of history for anybody who isn't aware. Law amendment passes in New Orleans, dies on the floor in Indy, and then the Sanchez amendment kind of comes back. It's kind of a reformed law amendment, and the amendment didn't. It wasn't to the Baptist Faith and Message. It was to our Constitution and bylaws.
Correct.
Those things, those legal documents. Let me ask you this: so, like, do you believe that the law amendment, if it were passed, and I think I'm of the opinion that we're going to be fighting this fight. Like, it's a fight that many Southern Baptists have said we're going to stand here and we're going to charge this hill. Where do you stand on that? And do you believe that do you think it clarifies or complicates the Baptist Faith and Message? Because that's the hard part of this, right?
It's a very hard part. And by the way, I don't like amending the Baptist Faith Message from the floor of
Oh,
the
that was
convention.
the wildest thing.
It's
Jared Cornutt, so he used to be one of our admins, and Jared actually said, I did not think that was going to happen that way. I don't think
yeah.
anybody thought it was going to happen that way.
Be honest with you, I wasn't even sure it was possible. I think, and I'm not. I need to study up on it, but I'm not sure that it shouldn't have been referred or ruled out of order or
I,
something.
I
There
think that
has
I
to
think that
be
the
a
best thing happened where we went in and we were like, "Hey, that doesn't need to happen again."
yeah, that's right. So it doesn't because
Yeah,
it needs to be more thoughtful and careful from that.
absolutely, absolutely.
But let's get back to your question on the law
Yeah,
amendment, which I think you're right. It's a pressing question. And here's what every Baptist, whatever they think about the law Sanchez argument, this is not going away. Okay,
no,
this is not going away. So we can march around this mountain every year if that's what everybody wants to do, and no one wants to do that, Tyler.
no.
So, or we can deal with it.
Mhm.
Now, you asked me a pointed question. Did the law amendment, Sanchez amendment, did that clarify or complicate? It's actually a great question because it did a little of both, didn't it?
Yeah.
I voted for it. I
Mhm.
supported it. And I would have said, okay, if I had only those two choices, I'll say it clarified it. But here's the problem with bylaw, and I would vote for it again, by the way, if another iteration
Yeah.
came. And I have good friends who didn't vote for it. I'm doing a lot of listening with pastors, and I've talked
Mhm.
to some guys who said, I am complementarian. I believe what the BFNM says about that elders, pastors should be men as qualified by Scripture, but I
Yeah.
didn't vote for the law amendment. And then what they always tell me is because I was afraid of how it was going to be used or interpreted. I've heard that several
Yeah.
times, and I
Yeah.
respect that. Now, I voted for it because I know something has to happen, and we're going to keep going around this until we deal with it. And by the way, a majority of Southern Baptists, as you know, voted for it,
Yeah.
even when it failed to get to the 2/3. So any leader knows you're in an intractable situation when a majority of your people want to do something, but a minority are keeping them from doing it
Mm.
this way.
Yeah.
So now we got to look at that and figure out, okay, how do we solve it? We can't tell the majority forget about it. They're
Right.
not going to forget about it. But at the same time, we have a procedure, and a minority has said we don't want you doing it this way, and that way is the bylaw change. Bylaw change again. I voted for it, but I will say this: bylaw change is not an efficient way to lead an organization.
Mm.
It is a necessarily inefficient way to lead an organ. You're always going to be behind the curve.
You hear
You
that,
need
pastors? You need
thirds,
to know that, pastors. It's not an efficient way to lead an organization. No, I agree.
right? You
Yeah,
need 2/3. You need 2 years. You can't keep up with human depravity. Okay, you
yeah.
cannot keep up with the
That's a
social
good word,
issues.
brother. Yeah,
And that is really not what. And I have voted for the bylaw things in regards to sexual abuse, in regards to racism, in regards to
yeah, yeah, yeah,
homosexuality. But there is no way you can be exhaustive
yeah.
in saying these are the things that would cause a church not to be in friendly cooperation
Mhm.
with the SBC. We will always be behind the curve. Again, I would vote for it, but I have proposed what I think is a better way.
Okay.
And I put it on the little website we put together called BaptistRenewal.us. So if people want to know
Okay.
some of the things I'm thinking, they can check that out. And they can also ask questions there and so forth. So that's the commercial. But here's what I say on there.
Yeah.
I propose this. I wish the convention would authorize a task force. As you know, we've used those
Oh, we love some
several
task
times.
force. Everybody gets a
We love
task
it.
force. Yeah.
But occasionally you need it
Yeah,
because it
absolutely.
sits outside the normal apparatus and is able to kind of speak into it.
Yeah.
I would propose that we have a task force that the next president appoints, whether it's me or someone else. I'd still vote for this. And that apparatus would study and report on the meaning and use of the term pastor,
Okay.
consistent with what the New Testament, the Bible teaches, and consistent with the history and practices of Baptist people.
Okay.
Now, what that would do is this: a well formed task force, pastors, few theologians would write a report and say, this is what Baptist people mean when we use the word pastor.
Yeah.
We could then clarify where the boundary line should be drawn,
Okay.
because there's a lot of reasons for this confusion, and we could talk about that. But there are
Oh, yeah.
people are using the same vocabulary but a different dictionary sometimes,
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
we need to say this is what we mean and this is where we think the parameters are. I think you need a report to do that, like a longer form report, and then the task force could have a series of recommendations to the credentials committee, to state conventions. I know we can't order state conventions, but you can advise
Yeah.
and say this is what we mean when we use the term pastor.
Yeah.
This is where there's latitude and this is where there isn't latitude. This is how we can operate
Okay.
within the parameters of the BF&M.
Yeah.
You bring a report back. Now, I only need 51% now, right?
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
I only
Okay.
need 1 year now.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think if you get a good report, you're going to get 90%. You're going to get an overwhelming number of Baptists who go, yep, we can buy it. If you get the right report, you will get that overwhelming number.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick case in point. I talked to a pastor who said, I voted against the law amendment. Very good pastor. He said, I'm complimentarian, I want you to know, but I was afraid of how it was going to be enforced and used.
Yeah.
I didn't trust some of the people. Okay, I hear you. But I described my plan to him, and here's what he said. If you propose that, I would vote for it, and I think you'll get 90% of the Southern Baptists. And what it will do, Tyler, is it will eliminate the lack of clarity and the confusion we have. Because here's the problem. We have some churches using the term in one way and some using it in another way.
Yeah.
But the problem is this is an important issue.
Yeah.
And we can't just make up ecclesiology on the fly and redefine words based on the whim.
Yeah.
It's an important issue. So let's clarify what we mean. Let's make some recommendations about what we're going to do. That will help everyone. There may be churches when you do that who go, hey, we don't agree with that. We're out. Okay. I'm not happy about that.
Absolutely.
But it won't drag it out every year. 2 or 3 churches were bringing them up. You know, they'll know.
Yeah.
They'll know I can't be in this.
Yeah.
And it will give clarity to the credentials committee. And I think it will take us out of this cycle where we're going to deal with this every single year.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that's a reasonable response. It's something for us all to consider. And so can you say that website one more time?
BaptistRenewal.us.
BaptistRenewal.us. All right. I'll make sure to put that in the description of the post as well.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's just keep rolling along with this. Let me talk to you a little bit about abuse reform, because I know that this is something that, your previous presidency. I mean,
Yep.
like you were, going to be nominated. You withdrew before you even made it to the floor, and that was a different climate. We were actually talking
Oh boy.
about this yesterday. A group of friends of mine. I was telling them that I was meeting with you, and I was like, man, what a different climate that was. Even now,
Yep.
what have we done well? Where have we failed? And what can we do to rebuild trust among pastors, victims? You know, what do we do and also to like just make this big, throw in all in your question, avoid denominational bureaucracy and all the things, right? So let's just talk abuse reform pretty
Yeah.
quickly on that.
Such a huge issue. And it does need
Absolutely.
to be talked about very straightforwardly because we need to know kind of what you, like you said, well, what went right and what went wrong.
Yeah.
And the key is to restore trust. Let me tell you, as I'm talking to pastors, the number one thing I'm hearing, and honestly, if you said, what has surprised you so far? And I've talked to many, many pastors, and
Yeah.
that's all I'm going to be doing between now and June. I mean, well, it's not all I'm going to be doing. It's a lot of what I'm going to be doing
Absolutely. Yeah.
is a lack of trust. They have lost trust. I'm
Mhm.
telling you, I'm going to say that to leaders that I know and love. Let me tell you, we lost some trust. We're going to have to earn it back. This issue has cost us trust on both sides, by the way. It's
Yeah.
cost us
Absolutely.
trust. So let answer the question we've asked it. What have we done right? Well, look, sexual abuse is a real problem. It's a societal problem. It's not a Baptist problem. It's a societal problem. It's a
Yeah.
human problem. And almost all of us in the last decades have learned about sexual abuse, things we did not know.
Mhm.
Tyler, you're a younger man than I am, but when I went to Baptist University, Baptist Seminary, I don't think I ever took one course on it. I don't think
Yeah.
I ever heard one lecture on it. And yet I encountered it in my first church within my first, I think, year and a half of ministry. I had a case which, I don't want to go and tell the whole story, but had a case that I was immediately confronted with. And I was like, I don't even know what to do. I don't
Yeah.
even know how to handle this. So, to the degree that Baptist leaders, pastors, denominational leaders, agencies, entities have learned more about the facts of sexual abuse,
Hmm.
that's a good thing. Almost all of our entities today have protocols in place that would not have been there 20 years ago, even.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Protocols like if you go on a mission trip, I go on mission trips with RT. We send lots of mission trips. I can't even go on a mission trip without having to go through a training process about
Yeah.
sexual abuse. We have training here at Calvary. You probably do at your church.
Yeah.
And those were things that, by the way, most churches were doing those before we had this crisis in the
Yeah.
last 5, 6 years. But to the degree that people understand sexual abuse is a real issue, there are predators and they hide and they're clever. And I mean that in a devious way. And we need to protect our church. That's a good thing.
Absolutely.
And if that is all we had focused on, Tyler, there would have been no division. There
Yeah.
would have been 95% of our people. If this had been about stopping predators and protecting children, this would not have been a problem.
Mm.
The problem is, and I'm going to speak frankly, you may not agree, maybe not everyone listening to this agree. That's why we have these conversations. What did we
Absolutely.
do wrong? We expanded the scope of this to include things far beyond what are legally defined as sexual abuse. We got involved in complicated adult relationships, some of which had been transpiring over many, many years. And we began to use the term abuse in a very elastic way. It began to mean all kinds of things. In fact, the definition seemed to change every 15 minutes. It
Mm.
seemed to change based on who was doing the talking and how they wanted to apply it. But you know what? Sexual abuse actually means something. It's a legal term. You can Google it. What does it mean in your state? What is the law? You don't get to use that term in a haphazard, reckless fashion.
Mm.
There are things that are done that are wrong and immoral and violate God's law, but aren't necessarily legally sexual abuse. And when we began to just use that term in a very elastic and haphazard fashion, that's the genesis of the lawsuits
Mm.
that have now cost us, the number is bouncing around here, but it's around 14 million. But I've heard people say it's closer to 20 million. I
Yeah.
don't know. A lot of money. And it isn't because we were fixing a problem. It's because we created a problem in the way we dealt with this. I could tell you the things. It was wrong to waive attorney-client privilege. It was wrong to indemnify guidepost. It was wrong to make this issue about adult relationships that are admittedly complicated and certainly immoral in those cases. They violate God's law. And to make it about those cases. And what really, even to this day, angers me, and this is hardly ever talked about, so I'm glad to be able to address it. It makes me sad. At the very moment that we were poised to deal with a real issue of child sexual abuse, we kind of got the bait and switch pulled on us. And we got distracted and we got divided, and it became about something much, much bigger. And that became the problem. And that's why there's division. The division isn't about people wanting to deal with sexual abuse. The division is how you define that, who gets to define that, and how you go about stopping it. And unfortunately, it became very, very divisive because of some of the things I've listed. I've given you some specifics about how we messed up.
Yeah.
I'm just scratching the surface, really. But we made some really big mistakes. We made some huge mistakes, and we're paying for it. And it has cost us trust with those who said, hey, you shouldn't have done it that way. It's also cost us trust with the survivors and victims of sexual abuse, because there were a lot of people that made promises to that group that there was no way they could ever fulfill those promises. And I think they've broken their hearts all over again. So we made a lot of mistakes. We could talk about this the whole time, but we made a lot of mistakes. And here's what we need to know. Here's what I want to say this.
Go ahead.
People make mistakes. I'm not talking about sexual abuse. I'm talking about how we handled it and responded to the report. Leaders make mistakes. I made some mistakes. Like, I signed one of those petitions telling the executive committee to indemnify. Remember when those petitions were going around and everybody told the executive committee? I actually signed one. It's one of the most things that embarrasses me the most. It was a dumb thing to do. We should not have indemnified guideposts. Our lawyers told us that. Ronnie Floyd told us that. But there was this huge stampede to do it. This huge stampede. It was a mistake. And that has cost us a lot of money. People are going to make mistakes. The question is, do you own the mistake? Did you learn from the mistake? Will you say, you know what, we shouldn't have done that? Because if you can't learn from the mistake, you're going to repeat it. So I was 1,000% behind the sexual abuse reform movement. Like, the reason I was going to run a couple of years ago is because of that. I have a story. I've shared it in the past. Again, probably don't have time to get into it, but I had a sensitivity towards it. I had a desire to be part of solving this issue.
Yeah.
And then, things happened, and I thought, well, this is not the right time for me to run. And I learned a lot from that. I was 1,000% behind it because I thought we were signing up to stop predators and protect children. And unfortunately, it became about something very different, in my opinion.
Well, and I will say this: I appreciate your candor and your willingness to speak so frankly on this issue, brother. That was very helpful to see your heart on it. And so let's just keep going. I don't want to keep you up. Like you said, it's Wednesday, so me and you both. It's Wednesday for pastors. It's midweek. Let's jump down to this question. I want to ask you this. Okay, so the cooperative program. Right.
Yep.
And so I actually was talking to a local a pastor in our state. I was at a pastor's conference Monday. I was talking to him, and he said that he had heard, you hear these things. A large church in our state has there's conversations about, hey, doing different with CP giving and all these things. And we hear of that, right? But the cooperative program is the funding mechanism of what you said the purpose of the Southern Baptist Convention is, which is, cooperating together for the mission. What are the concerns that you have most about the future of the CP? And then how do we reinvigorate trust and participation in the cooperative program?
Yeah, trust is lost. In fact, I'm going to pull up a quick stat for you here. 2007, 2008, total cooperative program giving, $541 million. So almost $542 million. Let's round the number up. $542 million. 07, 08. That's the year. Yeah. $542 million. 16 years later, 23, 24, the number is $447 million. Yeah. That's a drop of $95 million in 16 years. Yeah. And I want to let that sink in. That's a drop of almost $100 million in less than 2 decades.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to be a math major to know something's going on there. And you say, well, SBC is shrinking. It's not shrinking that much. Like, I know membership is stalled and the membership numbers, and there's a lot of competing data there. No, that says something. And what it's saying is there's a lack of trust, there's a lack of institutional health. And what you said anecdotally, I have heard that. I'm running out of how many times I've heard it.
Yeah, I'm sure that you do. Yeah, you're talking to pastors and all that. Yeah.
Significant. These are churches, and every church is a significant church, but I'm talking about churches that give sizable amounts to the CP, both in percentage and in real dollars, have reduced that or are thinking about reducing it. There are meetings happening. You should know there are meetings happening among high-level churches and high-level SBC leaders. They are acknowledging the issue. They don't want to talk about it publicly, but they're acknowledging the issue, and they're thinking about they're studying what does a post-CP future look like. I promise you, those conversations are happening.
Oh, they need to be happening. Yeah, absolutely. They've got to be happening. Yeah.
Now, so that's my concern. How do we reinvigorate it? You asked me. Well, we're going to have to restore trust.
Yeah.
Gosh, we're going to have to restore trust. And that doesn't mean we all agree on every single thing. But I think, again, as I get back to something I said earlier, there's been a loss of trust. And you can't just give people a PR statement. You can't just give people a lecture and say, well, don't designate your giving and criticize their motives for doing that. That is not what Southern Baptists need right now. What Southern Baptists need is not a lecture. They need to be listened to. They need our leaders who are listening to them and demonstrate concern. And then we need to have those good conversations about, okay, what is the future of the cooperative program? That is the means to an end, but let's not keep our eye off the end, funding missions.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the cooperative program, but we've got to ask ourselves some hard questions. What does the next 50 years look like? Yeah. Do we have to consider all our alternatives? Do churches want more flexibility? I don't know. Those are great questions, but we better have the courage to ask them and entertain those questions.
And as far as and the CP, so they fund the entities, right? IMB, North American Mission Board, ERLC. I want to talk about the ERLC really quick, right?
Good.
So lightning rod of controversy. So lightning rod of controversy. Now, a lot of that, me and you both know, you can attribute that to the political climate. A lot of that was leadership. A lot of that was various things, correct?
Yep.
We can sit there, but you yourself get up at the mic. I'm in Dallas, Texas, and I see Pastor Willy Rice make the motion to abolish this commission.
Yep.
So what should be done to correct the vision? Since the churches, the messengers, voted to uphold the commission,
they did.
What should be done to correct it, or should it be abolished?
Well, there are people who argue the latter, that it should be abolished. I
saw an article today. Somebody earlier this week, another guy wrote an article, open letter to the trustees. Hey, abolish.
I saw the same thing. So there are people who do it. Yeah. You were there. You heard my speech. My speech was the first line of it. Why do we vote to do this? Abolish it because that's how we save it. And that sounds like, okay, that's counterintuitive. That was the first line of my speech. And I meant it. I felt like that motion, and by the way, I think it accomplished its purpose. It may have only got 43%. Yeah. But the reality is the ERLC got the message this time. They did not listen to the message in 24 when probably about that same number with raised ballots voted to abolish them. As you know, this was a second attempt. Yeah. This time it was a ballot vote. And this time they got the message. We don't need a PR campaign. We don't need a clever brochure. We need you to get the message. And they did. And again, this message wasn't aimed at any one person, the president of the ERLC, but as you know, Dr. Leatherwood resigned and decided to bring his tenure to an end. I have had conversations with members of the trustees who say to me, and I'm just reporting, time will tell. Yeah. Hey, we got the message. And they've been so kind. Yeah. I don't think I'd ever been called by somebody in the trustee board of the ERLC before, but they were, I don't know why they're calling me, I guess because I made the motion. But what would you say to us? And, I shared my heart, and it wasn't anger or acrimony. I had no personal acrimony to anyone there, but they had become a lightning rod, as you said, for many reasons. But they are real reasons. Yeah. And we needed them to get the message. They say they have gotten the message. that they're taking some steps in the right direction. Time will tell, right? We need to see who they hire as a president.
Yeah.
That's really going to set the agenda, and we need to see how that president comes in and leads. We need a leader who's not ashamed of Southern Baptists, who's not trying to change Southern Baptists, but listens to Southern Baptists, takes their marching orders from Southern Baptists, and represents Southern Baptists in the public square,
Yeah.
and that they understand that. Quite honestly, I feel like we've had some leaders in the last decade, and again, I don't want to go into names, but we had some. I think they were embarrassed by us.
Mm.
I think they were embarrassed by where our people were politically, culturally, and felt like it was their job to change us, to educate us. Well, I've kind of see where some of those people have ended up, and I'll stick with Southern Baptists. I like who we are and what our people are and what our convictions are. We do need, obviously, prophetic voices challenging us, of course, but we need our entities to be willing to work with us and for us and represent us.
So speaking of entities, let's close with this. We'll close this question on entities and move on. Form 990, the IRS Form 990, the financial transparency movement. So you talk about building trust. I know that many pastors have said, and they said this to me in conversations, we want this. We want to
Yep.
know where, NAM is spending their money, the
Yep.
IMB and the RLC and, all the CP funded entities. We want to see this.
Yep.
Where do you stand on that? And then just kind of a blanket question: do you see any other course corrections on the same kind of vein for our entities?
Well, we have to restore trust, and when trust is low, transparency needs to be high. I joked about the 990. I was for it, and I'm still for it.
Yeah.
Is it the solution? Maybe, but I'm for it, and it needs to be pressed. Our entity heads need to understand this. One of my pillars of renewal is denominational accountability. And I say, Tyler, I think our denomination is healthier when it is led by churches and pastors, not entities and presidents. And that is not a shot at anybody. I know most of our entity heads personally. I love them. I think they're men of character and calling, and I'm grateful that they are there. Some of them I would count as close friends. But the Southern Baptist Convention is a convention of autonomous churches. We are healthiest when churches lead and the leaders of those churches lead, not the other way around. I really feel like it's kind of been more the other way around in the last few years. So trust is low. So transparency needs to be high. The 990, when they first started making that motion, I joked, I don't know what a 990 is. I'm not an accountant.
Yeah, I'm not an
Is
accountant.
that a new car?
Yeah.
I don't know. What is that? But I started to read up on it and listen to it. And honestly, it's not even that intrusive. It's not even that much information, actually. It's kind of like a baseline of information that is required. And I would say to my friends, the idiots, if you don't like the 990 because of some reason, well, okay, make a deal. Tell us what you do like. Let's talk.
Yeah.
But you cannot show us the back of your hand here. You cannot ignore I think this is another one, Tyler, that is not going away.
Yeah.
People want more information than they're getting. They don't need a carefully crafted PR statement. They have a right to know. And I don't know why the salaries of our entity heads is such a carefully guarded secret. It's not like the nuclear codes or something. I don't really care that much, and they should be very well paid. I do not want this for reasons of selfishness or scandal or anything like that. But if the people are saying in a 990 form, you have to release the top 5 salaries, I think, of an organization. If the people are saying we need a little more accountability, I would give it. I would give it. And if I become the president, I'm going to try to press that issue. I'm going to be on if you're a president, you're ex officio on some trustee boards. And okay, now I'm a trustee. Now I'm going to say, I want it. I want it. Because we keep hearing, well, trust the trustees. And my response is, that's a great idea. You go first. Tell them this information. And we're going to have to get more information. Is the 990 the perfect answer? I don't know. I think it's a good one. But if you have a better one, I'm listening. But I tell you what you can't do. You can't shut this conversation down and say, we're not going to give you any more information.
So let's close with this one. All right. So the SBC, and I've noticed this. Okay. So I am 33. I'm at my first senior pastorate. I've been at this church for 2.5 years, but I've been involved with I've been involved with SBC since I was in my early 20s. Right. And so
I love it.
I love the Southern Baptist Convention. I love getting together. I love doing those things. But I have noticed a ratcheting up of the tension. I've noticed this encroaching political mindset. There's the tribalism, and it's
Yep.
honestly it's a symptom of the culture, right? It's a symptom of the tribalism all around us. So,
Yep.
what would you do as the president to kind of turn the tone down a little bit and past pastorally, like what does pastoral leadership look in this role? What does that look like?
Well, first of all, you're a great encouragement to me, 33 and a little older than you, been at it for a while. But to
Yeah,
hear guys like you, you're obviously a bright guy, and to hear you love the SBC and want to help it be that's why guys are hopeful, and we have reason to be hope. So thank you for leaning in and engaging
thank you, thank
these
you.
issues. Um, you know, the presidents can set tone. And I want to be that. I think I've been that in 41 years of ministry. You don't
Mhm.
go 41 years, 21 years here at Calvary
Yeah,
without building consensus, building bridges with people. But here's what I would say to our leaders. Yeah, there's some tribalism. Tyler, one of the things I had to learn, and I had to learn this lesson a couple years ago, is I need to listen to people that I was ignoring.
yeah, that's a good
And,
word.
and that was one of the big lessons. I
That's a
had
good word.
dismissed some people because I was just, oh, they're loud, they're angry. And I understand that. And, they criticize somebody. Okay. And maybe I don't even like all the ways that they express some things. But my instinct was, oh, I'm just going, I'm marginalizing that. That was a mistake.
Mhm.
What I've learned in the last 4 years is, you know what, you need to listen to some people that you disagree with.
Yeah,
Tribalism, it's one thing to point your finger at somebody else and go, look how tribal they are. Well, why don't you look in the mirror? I mean, all of us, I'm not saying you,
no, yeah,
and
no.
look in the mirror and look at how tribal we are.
Oh yeah.
And if you're going to break that tribalism, you got to start, right?
Hmm.
You're the one that's got to walk across the aisle and sit down and have coffee with somebody and say, okay, tell me why you're angry and talk to me
Yeah.
about what you want to see done. And you know what? Maybe you say 10 things and I can agree with 7 of them,
Yeah.
and maybe 5 of them I can do and 2 of them I can't. But I'm listening. I'm not dismissing you. And I'm finding points where we can agree and work together.
For sure.
I have not seen enough of that.
Yeah.
I think here's the misnomer. People are saying the tribalism is coming from the bottom up and it's being driven by the internet and social media. Okay, social media certainly exacerbates
Yeah,
tribalism.
for sure.
No question. I don't think it's being driven from the bottom up. I think
Okay.
now it's being driven by the top down.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's being driven because of a sense of elitism and
Mm,
an unwillingness to sit down and listen to people who have real concerns.
mm.
The dog, you may not like the dog barking, but then he wakes you up from a nap and then you find out, hey, there's a burglar in the backyard. Okay, maybe he barks too much. And I don't want to compare anybody to a dog. I'm just using a
No,
metaphor
no,
here.
no. Good illustration.
Sometimes the barking dog is seeing something you haven't seen.
Mm,
And if you just get mad at him because he's loud, you may miss what he's trying to warn you about.
mm.
So there are some guys who have been loud. They've been sharp in the way they communicated things, sharper than maybe I would be. And maybe they said something about a friend of mine I didn't like. Okay.
Yeah,
And I'm not excusing some of those things.
yeah,
We do need a better tone. But if you want to, but here's the key. Unity is not telling people you disagree with to hush.
mm,
That's not how you're going to have unity in your church. Somebody's disagreeing. Hush. We're supposed to be united. That's not unity. You know what? If somebody is invested in your church and they've got a
yeah,
problem, unity comes when you show the maturity to listen to them, hear them out. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't agree. Maybe you can do what they want, maybe you can't do what you want.
mm,
But why not show them some respect? Listen, and you know what? You may find you got more in common than you know. And as you know already, I'm sure you've learned,
yeah.
when you do listen to people, honestly, it goes a long, long, long way. So
Absolutely.
that's what I would do. I would try to set a positive tone. I don't want to be sharp. Josh Powell, Josh is running.
Yeah,
Josh and I, we're not like close friends, like we know each other that well.
yeah.
So I don't want to suggest otherwise, but we have talked to one another. We called one another just even a couple months ago when I heard he was thinking about this. And I wanted him to know I was thinking about it. And we prayed together. We talked
Mm,
about our families. We talked about our churches.
yeah.
Listen, He is a great, I want to say this, I don't know anything bad about Josh Powell. He is a
Yeah,
great person and a great pastor. So we're going to try, both of us, I think, to set a positive tone. Now, that doesn't mean we won't disagree.
yeah,
It doesn't mean maybe even some of those disagreements might not be sharp. Like we want to, say, hey, this is where we disagree. But we're going to try to be respectful, to
yeah.
be gracious to. He is my brother in Christ. I think he would say the same about me. And
Mm,
I think we can set a good tone. And then I would say the second thing is we listen to people who have concerns instead of dismissing them. That's how
yeah.
we can create a better culture in the SBC.
So, final question. All right. So, I like to ask this question when I'm talking to pastors about vision. Okay. So, let's fast forward 2 years. We are in St. Louis, right? So, we're in St. Louis 2 years.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Yeah.
so.
So, St. Louis. We go to a Cardinals game. Me and you, we're sitting there, and you're getting ready to hand the gavel to the next guy because typically, it's 2 years, right? And
Right.
if you win, somebody may run against you next year in Indy. But let's just say hypothetical scenario: me and you are sitting at the Cardinals game, and I look at you and I go, Pastor Willie, what has excited you about these last 2 years? About pastors and messengers, about the SBC, what has been the best thing? Like, what's the thing that you would like to see accomplished? What happened? Tell me about these last 2 years.
It's not a number. It's not a measurable in the sense of, oh, we did this and got that many of that and so forth. It is a palatable sense
Mm,
that we're seeing renewal. My prayer, Tyler, is for SBC renewal.
mm,
I want, you're a young man, you've got many years of ministry ahead. I pray. And I pray it's been as joyful for you as it has been for me
yeah,
these 42 years that I've been a pastor. I truly do. But I would like it when you're my age, you look back and say, I got to experience an SBC renewal
mm,
where people were proud again to be Southern Baptist. They knew what it meant. It meant something that was meaningful and valuable. And and I do think when that happens, the climate will begin to heal. The climate will begin to heal. The tone will begin to heal if we see an SBC return to health. There is not, I don't want to sound pessimistic, there is not a lot like in 2 years or maybe even 10 years you're going to do to change the long term trajectory in terms of membership attendance. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
what can an SBC president do about that? I can barely make an impact here,
Oh no, yeah. You got 2 years, right?
But if we focus on getting healthy
Mm,
and there's doctrinal clarity again, and we're back on mission. I would love 2 years from now, you think, hey, it feels like we're back on mission now. We're
yeah,
back to figuring out how to fulfill the Great Commission together. It feels like a renewal is happening.
mm,
That would be, to me, the answered prayer. And I know that's a bit subjective, but that's
yeah,
my prayer. God, give us a renewal of Baptist life in our time, in this century. I don't want you to spend the next 30 or 40 years of your ministry. I'm praying,
yeah.
God, by God, I'll say 50. I'm going to prophesy big for you. Let's
Thank you,
say the
brother.
next 50 years of your ministry. I don't want you to spend it in a denomination in decline,
Mm,
distracted, drifting, declining. I want you to be able to say, you know what, in this century, in my time,
mm,
God used the Baptist movement to shake America once more. He did it before.
yeah,
He can do it again, but we got to humble ourselves and we got to seek Him. We need a move of God. But that's what I'm praying for. I'm praying for a real sense of renewal in the Baptist movement.
absolutely. Well, brother, I'm gonna conclude in prayer, and then I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
pray for us and pray for you, pray for our convention, and then we'll call it a day. So let's pray. Father, I just thank you for Pastor Willie. God, I thank you for his heart for our convention. I thank you for this conversation. Just what a blessed time this has been, just to hear his heart. And I pray that all of the people that will watch this, that will hear this, will listen to his heart. God, even as we move into conversations with future candidates and other SBC entity leaders and all the different people, God, let us hear the heart of our convention, which is mission, that we will be united in mission. And God, I echo Pastor Willie's prayer for renewal. We need renewal in our land, and God, will you just grant that? Will you bring that to us? But it starts with us. It starts with us taking the step forward to be honest with one another and to have hard conversations, but also you locking an arm and lockstep and going out and sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ to all the nations. Father, I just pray over Willie, his family. God, will you just sustain them from attacks from the evil one? and sustain them from the attacks of the world and the flesh and all the things that come against him, even his own thoughts, God, that may even creep in. God, give him energy in the next few months. Just give him endurance. Help him to lean into your spirit. I pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much, Tyler.
Absolutely, brother. And thank you so much for meeting with us. And be sure to tune in the next time as we have another Southern Baptist conversation.